Hello, my name is Dale Davis, and this is my story. October 14, 2020 and May 6, 2021 are two dates I will never forget. In October, I was involved in a work accident, and because of that accident, I lost my spleen. I'll explain just a little bit about what happened. I ran a machine that made rails for the side of a bus. And so I would make the rail and I would put it on a rack, but the racks, when they were full, held an incredible amount of weight. And so we couldn't move it by ourselves, so we'd have to get someone to help us. And a guy got a forklift on the other end, and I was guiding one end, and because it's like over 40 feet long. And when he went with the forklift, it went too fast, and it pinned me between that and a steel post. And at that moment, it kind of stayed there for a little bit, and then it bounced off, and I lost all air. I couldn't breathe in, and I couldn't breathe out for over a minute. I didn't know what was happening, and then I went down into the floor, and all I felt then was just pain. When I finally made it to the hospital, a trauma team was waiting on me at St. John, and when they put me in the room, there were a lot of nurses and a lot of doctors and a lot of questions and people poking me and asking me questions, and I knew I was in bad shape when they started cutting my clothes off. That's when you know something's wrong. And then the doctor said, if we can't find out where you're bleeding, we're going to have to open you up. And they opened me up, and sure enough, had to take my spleen out. And when I was coming out of anesthesia, I remember hearing my wife's voice and my son's voice talking to me. And I didn't know at the time, but I found out later that I'd almost died in that accident because of the loss of blood. It has caused my health to deteriorate some because of the effects of meningitis, certain things had happened. I lost my hearing, but I was able to get a hearing aid. I could still hear enough out of my left ear to get a hearing aid, but my right ear is completely gone. That's not the only thing that the meningitis caused. I also am dizzy all the time. I mean, extremely dizzy. Dizzy when I walk, dizzy when I sit here and video in this, and dizzy when I just sit in front of my computer. And the other thing that it caused me to have was I don't think as well as I used to. I don't process things as well as I used to. But for some of you who know me, that might not have changed that much. But there's two things I want to talk about, and that's prayer and praise. The day I had my accident, there were a lot of people who voiced their prayers to God, and God spared my life. I didn't know it at the time, but apparently I almost died. I didn't stay in the hospital as long as they had expected. And so prayer works. People's prayers were answered by God. But another thing works as well, and that's praise. If you ever study the Psalms and look at King David always prayed constantly, and he praised God consistently. Because David faced more things than you and I will ever face. He faced all sorts of difficulties, despair, and doubts. But he always knew and always had confidence in God that he would be delivered from those things. And so he praised God. I read something the other night that said he cried out to God in praise. Now, we never think of praise in that manner, but he lifted his voice in joyful celebration to God in praise. And so whether we are facing difficulties, whether we're facing an accident, or whether we're facing despair or doubt, one thing we can be assured of is that we can praise God in the middle of all those things. When you're in a car accident and you feel like you're in a time of desperation, you can praise God. When you're in a hospital laying there with meningitis, you can praise God. And through it all, through all the difficulties that we face, we can always praise God. And we know that He will deliver us from those circumstances. I want to end it with a mathematical equation. Prayer plus praise produces power. What do I mean? You'll have the power to wake up tomorrow to make it through another day. You'll have the power to be able to face whatever difficulties come your way. You'll have the power to live your life every day in praising God. So if you remember anything, remember this: prayer plus praise produces power.